Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Daily Crypto Byte. Today is Friday, January 21st, and oh boy, we got some blood in the streets today. Bitcoin below that critical 40K level, lots of alts pulling back as well. I personally blame the traditional equity markets and stock traders for this, but how are you feeling today, CJ?
I'm feeling good. Congratulations to all the short traders out there, the Livermore-esque plungers to put the market down. So congratulations for you individuals. Yeah, interesting price action. I mean, traditional markets are just killing everything right now. So excited to look into the technicals a bit, kind of look at what's going on collectively in the marketplace. And then also we're going to talk about SundaeSwap, Monty's lovely experience last night doing that, and a lot more to come. So hope you guys enjoy. Monty, how are you doing this morning, my friend?
Yeah, doing all right. Doing all right. I'm glad it's Friday. Feels like it's been a long week. We've kind of been teetering on the brink of that 40K level. And based on what we saw yesterday at the market close for traditional equities, I'm not exactly surprised by what we're seeing today. You know, the market is very risk off. And there's a great question in chat this morning from Mr. Bob Dietrich. And he asked, where is this sell pressure coming from? Is it coming from short-term holders, long-term holders? I told him it's coming from short-term holders, and I want to dive into that a little bit because I think that's really important to look at. Short-term holders are typically more affected by, kind of the macro backdrop, the global equity market, and the risk-off nature that comes with that market. So, it does seem like lots of this sell pressure is from short-term holders, but I'll dive into some Glassnode data for that. But yeah, how are you doing, CJ?
Doing good. Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned the short-term holders. This always happens to us, and I'm sure it happens to you guys in the audience if your friends know that you're like deep into crypto or whatnot. But you get text messages near or at the top when it's like, is it a good time to buy Bitcoin or whatever? This is the first time it's ever happened. But I got a friend who is a short-term holder, new first bull market cycle, and he texts me and he says, if Solana goes below 130, I'm selling it all. I don't care. I'm completely out. And I said, yeah, that's, it takes a humble man to capitulate, and after being down, and sometimes it's the right thing to do. But I think you're seeing a lot of that in the market right now where you're starting to get like forced sellers because they're just like in a lot of pain, specifically holding from buying near the top earlier in the previous month. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays into price. But yeah, Solana did. I mean, once it dropped from 130 last night, it almost went like straight to 122 and then 120, but everything was down. So I mean, I'm not gonna focus too much on that one. Why don't we get into a little bit of charts?
Let's do it.
All right. So yeah, S&P down about 1% today. Very steep drop off. I mean, I think it's safe to say this is the steepest drop off we've had in the S&P since COVID, in terms of just like violent downward price action. However, the volatility, as you've known, like it was much higher, obviously during the liquidity crisis, but it is still relatively high compared to the last like corrections we've gotten. So we'll see. Still, I think that there's just a lot of macro uncertainty around rates and things of that sort. I'm not sure there's a whole lot the Fed can do in the market in the midst of this like market sell-off. So, just kind of waiting in cash, nursing a few short positions. But yeah, other than the volatility, I mean, there's not a whole lot to say in terms of like the S&P rebounding or anything like that. Yesterday we were starting to form like a bullish Harami candle, but we didn't close that way, and price sold right into it, and momentum came down even further. And the same is true for Bitcoin. We broke late last night during the evening session, and very similar inverted hammer candle to how the S&P 500 finished yesterday as well. And then there was just really no buyers willing. I think the only like retraces that you're seeing, I mean, obviously some people are buying the dip, but I think the majority of retraces you're seeing right now is probably just short covering. And we'll see how that plays out. ETH once again, feeling even more. reaching that interim period of high volatility, which has marked local bottoms previously, but I wouldn't really put a whole lot of stock into that right now. But yeah, I mean, a lot of things going on, and a lot of blood in the streets, and not much relief coming yet. At least it looks like. So interesting to hear your take as well, Monty.
Yeah, thanks for that, CJ. One thing that, is obviously particularly evident from not only what you just talked about there, but also from just the last like 2 months of price action is sort of this narrative about Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies decoupling from traditional equities seems to be kind of losing its steam. But I want to dive into some Glassnode data, and I actually want to kind of hopefully provide some reassurance to long-term holders in the sense that I do still think that ultimately Bitcoin can achieve that store of value narrative, um, you know, achieve some kind of hedge against inflation, hedge against traditional equities. Now is just not the time, and I think a lot of that has to do with who is participating in this market. Like I was talking about with Bob in the chat earlier, much of the participation in this market right now is coming from short-term holders. So I want to dive into that right real quick. CJ, I think you just did a great job of covering, what we're seeing in traditional equities that kind of, is leading to what we're seeing here in crypto. But let's look on chain real quick and just see if we're seeing any signs of long-term holder capitulation or, where exactly is the sell pressure coming from. So this is the first. I want to start with the long-term holder. This is the percent supply in profit versus percent supply in loss. So when the light blue area here is when the long-term holders are at a loss, and the dark blue is when long-term holders are at a profit. And at any given time, their percent at overall in this chart is the percent at which they make up the total market. So as you can see right now, still a lot. There hasn't been a turn down in the amount of total supply held by long-term holders. Sure, they've dropped off in profitability, but what's encouraging is that we haven't seen signs of capitulation with that drop off in profitability. These are long term holders, people that have held this Bitcoin for more than 6 months. They're not typically shaken by, interim price action. And if we zoom in a little bit more, we can see actually, that this has really plateaued and actually is almost kind of turning up here as we continue to sell off at the beginning of 2022. So we're not seeing any signs of capitulation from long-term holders. They're still holding steady, still, not showing any signs of distribution after they accumulated here during the summer months in this bear market. We're not seeing similar market dynamics. We're not seeing distribution from these long-term holders. They are still holding on. So where is this sell pressure coming from? It's coming from the short-term holders. This is something we've talked a lot about, the role that short-term holders are playing in this market. And obviously you have this sort of reflexive relationship between the two. When we have long-term holders distributing, that means we have short-term holders accumulating. The long-term holders are distributing into the hands of these short-term holders. And we typically see the short-term holders most involved in this market around market tops. So we saw it back here in January of 2018. We also saw it at the beginning of January 2021 when we were making new highs at the start of the year, almost exactly a year ago here. Now what we're seeing is actually pretty shocking. If we zoom in a little bit, we can see that of the 18% supply that is held by short-term holders, about 17.38% of that is at a loss. So how much more can we, see in terms of capitulation from these short-term holders? Well, they're still holding 18% of the total circulating supply at this point in time. But given the fact that 17.38% of them are currently underwater and have not yet capitulated, and if we zoom in here, you can see it's still kind of plateauing even amidst this recent market weakness. This is from this morning. This data is very recent. So even with this market sell-off, we're not seeing signs that these short-term holders are truly capitulating yet. So really what this tells me is that perhaps we're reaching, kind of a precipice, a peak in terms of capitulation. We're seeing these current short-term holders that are still in the market are looking to become long-term holders. They're not showing any signs of, upcoming capitulation, even amidst this extreme market volatility. So to me, that's reassuring. And also, I think it kind of reassures me that the narrative of that store of value and that decoupling narrative is not dead yet, because these short-term holders, like I said at the beginning of this episode, are very prone to the macro backdrop. Bitcoin is a globally traded asset that is prone to the, psychological elements at play in the global markets. When the market goes risk off, Bitcoin goes risk off. Short-term holders in particular go very risk off. And I think that's what we're seeing today. So although that narrative is weak right now at this given point in time, because of this influx of short-term holders in the space currently, I think we could see that narrative of that store of value and of that decoupling from the traditional equity market come back to life once the long-term holders, take control of this market. Once we see those short-term holders entirely capitulated, those long-term holders are the ones that believe in that narrative of, the store of value, of being a hedge against inflation, hedge against traditional equities. I think that is when we'll start to see, that narrative gain ground. But in the time being, we're not seeing it because short-term holders are what are really driving this market. But one last thing I'll say is that all of this data that I just shared was actually from a Glassnode video that was published just this morning. I highly encourage you to go check it out. Lots of really great stuff on here. Not a lot of views, but really, really great data. And it's just talking about the sell-off that we're seeing here this morning and kind of, where the sell pressure is coming from. Talks about what I just talked about, but even more in depth. So really good stuff there. Definitely go check that out on the Glassnode YouTube channel. But that's all I got. CJ, I'll pass it back to you.
All right. SundaeSwap. So as we've been talking about earlier in the week, SundaeSwap, the first and primary decentralized exchange on Cardano, launched. And so let's take a look at some of the Discord messages of some of the people that used it. Monty also used it. He's going to share his experience in just a moment here. But overall, it was pretty negatively received. Tried to buy SundaeSwap launch on Cardano, didn't work at all. Chain is congested. So not really buying. And, there's a lot of frustration with the Discord. Anyone having trouble swapping for Sunday, a lot of people thumbs up on that. Sentiment in general is just getting bad. So, Monty, how was your experience on SundaeSwap?
Ah, man, I hate to pile on, and Cardano doesn't need any more critics. It's got plenty of them, at this current point in time. I was trying to be favorable on Cardano. I talked about it a lot this week. I was excited for that SundaeSwap launch. And yeah, I had a very similar experience to all those people in the Discord. I was in the Discord myself as well. And I was concerned because I did try to put a swap through. I did an example of a swap on Spooky Swap last week on the cocktail hour. And it goes through almost instantly, typically around 10 seconds or so. And you can see it all on the Block Explorer. When I did it last night, it was around 7:30 p.m. or so. So it was, peak network congestion. SundaeSwap had just gone live for swapping. But still, I put a swap in after 30 minutes, still had not gone through. And I had no sign that it was going to be confirmed soon, which is very troubling when you're, just trying to swap your money and there's no, I couldn't even really see where it was, couldn't see any form of confirmation happening on the Explorer. So it was all very frustrating, very not transparent, and just not a good user experience. One thing I talked about yesterday, CJ, was the fact that there is lots of competition in the DEX space currently. Like there are lots of options for swapping into various protocols. Although SundaeSwap obviously is the only way to get exposure to Sunday, this is a very saturated market, and the market will not tolerate an inefficient DEX like what we're seeing here from SundaeSwap. There is no reason to use it if your transactions and your swaps aren't going through after 30 minutes. I would just rather stay away from it altogether. So a bit discouraging. We'll continue to monitor that, watch the network congestion, and see if the swap average time goes down. But for the time being, a bit of a disastrous launch there for SundaeSwap.
Yeah, I mean, it just took so long. I don't think. I mean, maybe there is a difference between SundaeSwap and Cardano. Obviously, potentially different developers. But if you're working with the technology that the Cardano blockchain is providing you, and you're not able to provide a good service, then it doesn't really matter. Regardless, it's not going to be good for Cardano. And there's no guarantee of getting those users back. When you already have like EVM compatible chains like AVAX, not Solana, but AVAX, Phantom, Aurora, Near's second layer solution. So there's so many competitors that you really have to be like 5 to 10x better than them to actually gain user growth. Because if users don't have like a desire or some like allure that tells them, hey, I could be early to this. I could make a lot of money on this if I'm potentially, one of the first early adopters. But with Cardano, already a massive market cap, a lot of hype, a little bit of initial failure and letdown in this particular instance is just not what you would like to see from like a long-term bullish perspective on Cardano. So
Especially CJ, when you consider the amount of like anticipation around this launch. There was so much anticipation. People have been waiting for some genuine utility coming to Cardano for the longest time. That's what Cardano holders have been banking on. So I was disappointed, and I'm not even really like a long-term Cardano bull, but I can't even imagine how disappointing that was for people that have been waiting for this for a long time, only to see the network congested and not get their swaps through. So very, very frustrating stuff, but hopefully they get it sorted soon.
yep. I see a lot of depressing comments in the chat. Don't worry, there'll be another Bitcoin halving in 2024. Just kidding. But yeah, I mean, that's all I have today, particularly. Just kind of nursing these short trades down and not being too greedy with them. But yeah, interesting stuff. Monty, do you have anything you'd like to share before we close it up?
No, nothing much. Looking forward to doing our Doge of the Day right now because, like you said, some of these short positions starting to really run here. Some ones that we covered earlier in this week as potential plays to the downside, including some of those metaverse plays. So excited to talk about that a little bit. But ultimately, I think that it's going to be a relatively interesting weekend here. Going to have to monitor traditional equities. I mean, I was watching Netflix this morning. That thing is down like 25% today. Like absolute, that's blood in the streets. And, that is a large portion of the queues. So we got to watch the queues, see how those, rebound today, if they do at all. Because I think a lot of we see at the end of today will bleed over into Monday's price action for the crypto market. So going to keep watching that, but that's really all we got. So, yeah.
Yeah, last comment I see. It won't take till 2024. Yeah, I mean, I was just kidding about the halving thing. I was just a little potential bear market humor. That's all.
Now's
So
not the time for jokes, CJ.
I
Come on.
know it really isn't. It really isn't. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. We need a little comic relief here. So, yeah, but that's all we got for today. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, if you guys want to join a community of traders, we recommend you join us at markrebellion.com/try crypto. You can try the first week for just $7 at the link just below me. So definitely head over there and check that out. We got a pro charting service. We publish actionable trading sites with entries, exits, stop losses, and a whole lot more. So definitely head over there and check that out. And on your way out, please don't forget to like and subscribe. Definitely helps out the channel. But that's all we got for today. We'll see you guys on the Doge of the Day. Have a great rest of your day and take care.